Hello magical hands, and welcome to another sewing tutorial. In today's video we are going to be making this simple monostrap blouse with a tieable strap. And if it's something you're interested in learning, make sure to keep on watching. Make sure to subscribe, like and share this video. And without any further ado, let's get into it. So I'll fold my pattern paper into two. Right at the top part, I marked 3 inches right there for my neck width, and I marked 3 inches for the neck depth, which is a universal measurement. I'll connect those 2 points together with a curve as seen, and that is going to be my neckline for now. Right from that top part again, I'm still going to mark my shoulder measurement divided by 2, which gives me 7.5, and at that point I'll come down by 1 inch for the shoulder slope, and I'll connect it to meet my neck width of 3 inches. I'll mark downwards my round armhole measurement divided by 2, and I'll connect a straight line from my shoulder width to meet that point, and I'll extend it to the right side as seen. Now I will mark the midpoint of my armhole, which is 4 inches, and I'll mark half an inch inwards. I'll place my ruler as seen, such that a part of it is touching the width of the shoulder, a part of it is touching the base of the armhole, and a part is touching the half inch inwards. And in one swipe I will get my curve. I'll place my tape from the shoulder point as seen, and I'll mark to my bust point line, which is 11 inches. Leaving my tape there, I marked 18 inches, which is for my waistline. And for the full length, I want to use 23 inches, but the pattern paper is not enough, so we'll have to add up to the full length. After making straight line across that point, I proceeded to take my round bodice measurement. On the bust point line, I took my round bust measurement divided by 4. And on the waistline, I took my round waist measurement divided by 4. So I'm just going to mark my full length measurements around that's where this pattern paper ends, but I'll still add up to the full length of my fabric. So I'll connect these side seams together as seen. Mind you, I did not add any sewing allowance because the fabric I'll be using is going to be a very stretchy fabric. Now I'm going to take my scissors and I'm going to use the side to trace out these lines so that everything can be transferred to the other face of the paper, and that way I'll be able to get the same measurements on the other side. So just use something, you can use your scissors as well to trace these lines out. If you've watched to this point, make sure to hit the like button, make sure to subscribe if you have not subscribed yet, and make sure to turn on post notification bell so you get notified every time we post a new video. Now after opening this up, all these lines that I traced were very visible, but you probably can't see it because of how the camera was placed. So what I'm going to do is to just use my pencil and marker to mark out these lines properly. Like I said, all these lines are very visible because of the tracing, but you probably might not see it. Now, if you do not intend to use a stretchy fabric, I would advise you take your underbust measurements as well so that everything will be very fitted. But since I'm using a very stretchy fabric, I just ignore the underbust line, just so you know. You can include it in yours. So now that I've marked out the lines, I'm going to indicate the left and the right side of this pattern paper so I can decide which side of my shoulder is going to go down. Now that I'm done with that, I'll go ahead and start cutting out the excess fabric, the excess pattern paper. And after that, I'll fold it back and I'll bring my fabric. So for the fabric, I am using a sunray fabric. I've used this fabric before for 2 different tutorials. Apparently, this was the leftover and I wanted to make this blouse because I liked it, and that's why we're using it. So you can use 1 yard or 1.5 yards or 2 yards, depending on how big you are. So I'm going to cut this without adding any sewing allowance to the sides. Mind you, this sunray is stretchy, and then I also added to the length, and then I added allowance to the shoulder parts and all of that. After cutting that out, I brought back the pattern paper. That was my back piece, and now I'm going to mark 5 inches down from my shoulder on that armhole line. And I'm from that 5 inches that I marked there, I'm going to create a new curve to meet this our already marked neckline. And you don't really have to use a ruler, you can use your free hand. You will see that I even dropped the ruler to just use my free hand to blend this properly. So I marked 5 inches downwards. You can use 4 inches, you can use 6, depending on what you want. And now I'll cut this part out. Now that I've cut it out, I'm going to bring back that fabric and I'm going to recut this out. So you will notice that there's allowance along the armhole area and there's allowance on the top part, but I did not add side seam allowance. Avoid adding side seam allowance. So now to cut the front piece, I'm going to slash this because I want this to have a bit of pleats around the shoulder area from this picture inspiration we have here on the screen. And then the fabric used in that picture inspiration is a lycra fabric, just in case you're wondering. So now I opened up my fabric in order to cut this out, and I'll place the back piece to make sure that they align properly. Also, I was just placing it to make sure that I have the complete full length that I need. And once I've gotten the full length, I'll go ahead and start cutting this out. Definitely, I'll place something around it, and then do not add sewing allowance while cutting this out. If possible, make it 1 inch smaller than your actual measurement so it can fit you properly around your bodies. So the only part I added my sewing allowance, which I mentioned before, is along the top parts, the armhole parts, the shoulder, and of course the length. But for the side seams, do not add any sewing allowance. So after cutting this as seen, I also still brought back the back piece because I want everything to be equal along the full length. So now that I've gotten that, we'll proceed to start sewing. So I'm going to place the front piece and the back piece on each other, and I'm going to pleat the shoulders of the front piece so it becomes equal with the shoulder of the back piece. So this is exactly how we'll be joining it. After I've placed it on my sewing machine, as I'm sewing, I'm going to make pleats on the front piece shoulder, and then I'll just make sure that they are both equal at the end of the day after I've done that little pleat that I did there. And then this is what it looks like. This is what the pleat looks like, and which is totally optional also, just so you know. So this is what it looks like. Now if you used a lycra fabric in place of a sunray like I used, I would advise you cut your pieces into 4. That's 2 pieces for the front, 2 pieces for the back piece, so that you can use the lining piece of your lycra to flip it over. So just so you know, I joined my front piece, that's why you're seeing that line. I've sewed up the side seams and I went ahead to weave this so it has a clean finish. So now that I've weaved it, I'll go ahead and I will hem the armhole, and then I'll also hem the base of this. And this is exactly how I hemmed it. So I fold it just once, I just fold it in once, and I sewed very close to the edge, and you can see how beautiful and neat the finished work looks like. I did the same thing for the base as well. So if you want, you can also double hem or double sew. You can just sew exactly on that weaved part so it can appear, it will still look very clean. Now I went ahead to cut out a long band. I cut this to 36 inches and I divided it into 2. That is leaving me with 18 inches for both of them. I also went, and the width is 4 inches. I went ahead and cut out extra pieces for it, which is going to serve as the lining piece for it, and I'll place it right facing each other, just as seen. Now take this to my sewing machine and I'll sew up as indicated, making sure to close up one of the ends and making sure that the other end is left open. So after sewing it that way, I flipped it over and this is what I have. So this is what I'm going to use for the tieable strap, and I'm yet to hem the neckline of this, so I would have to join this first before hemming it, and this is exactly how I'm going to join it together. I'll join from that part down, and wherever it ends, I'm just going to hem whatever is left of that area. So afterwards, this is what it looks like after I joined it. This is for my tieable strap, and then I'll go ahead and hem, like I mentioned, anything that is remaining, just go ahead and hem it all up. And after hemming it, this is what I have right here. I proceeded to tie this, and this is the final result, guys. If you learned something new, make sure to hit the like button, make sure to subscribe, make sure to share, and of course, see you in my next tutorial.